everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of Reputation Rescue at Lazio with me, the United City FM. Welcome along. So, since you and I were together last, which was that amazing win that we had against Real Madrid in the Champions League group stages, Mason Greenwood absolutely stole the show, didn't he? We've done pretty well. In Serie A, we've had 3 games and 3 wins, 4-0, 1-0, 1-0 against the likes of Genoa, Verona and Perugia. So that's pretty good going. We are climbing up the table, which is great. But then, unfortunately, Real Madrid got their own back slightly. Away from home at Real Madrid, we came unstuck. But we were the masters of our own destruction, really. You can see that Muru, our left-back, got himself sent off on the 73rd minute. And up until that point, we were at 2-2. And we'd been ahead twice in the game. So we were doing really well. And then he got himself sent off and it just fell apart after that. 2 very late goals, 87th minute and 93rd minute. And we had no way of responding. And so it was a bit of a problem. We also gave away a penalty as well. So we really did make it hard for ourselves. But that's just the way it is. In terms of the group, that means that with a couple of games to go, we're still sitting in second place behind Dortmund. We now have to play Dortmund and Galatasaray. So you'd imagine that we'd get a reasonable result against Galatasaray, how they've looked so far in the group. But Dortmund's going to be tricky, isn't it? And if Real Madrid can win their last couple of games, we might find ourselves out of the competition, possibly. So watch this space for that one. We'll come back next episode and we'll just update exactly where we are, where we finished up in that group. Because today we have Roma, which is our local derby. Lazio versus Roma share a stadium, if you didn't realise that. And then the next game that we're going to come back for next episode is the Napoli match. Because currently, if we go to the Serie A table, you can see that they sit top of it. So that's why we're coming back for that game, to see how we can compete against them. But we currently find ourselves in 6th place, a couple behind Roma and 1 behind Zebra, which is Juventus in this particular series. So you can see it's very tight. But Napoli so far, with a game extra that they've played, are at the top of the table. So if a couple of these teams win their game, then we can close that gap to Napoli again. We need to win this, really, and see if we can jump over Roma and keep clawing our way back up the table a bit. After 11 matches, though, in mid-November, I think this is a reasonable place to be because it's so tight. If we can go on a second half season run like we did last season, then we'll be really in with a shout, because we are much closer this season at this point than we were last season. So that's something to look out for as we progress through the next few weeks. But today is all about Roma, as I say. There's not much else to tell you about in terms of the club and everything that's going on. It's all ticking along quite happily. Form has been pretty good, as you've seen. There's not a lot of injury issues either. We've got Palombi is out just because he's coming back from a knock, and so he's on out of the squad, but he probably wouldn't have been in it anyway. So everybody else is fit and has been rotated a little bit. You can see that by the match sharpness that people have had opportunities to play recently, which is great. So all of that means that for today's game against Roma, this local derby big clash, we have our number 11 out, basically, which is Strakosha in goal, Felipe and Acerbe in central defence, Zappacosta at right back, Muru at left back, Gagliardini, Milinkovic-Savic and Alberto in central midfield, Lazzari on the right, on Correa on the left, and Immobile up top, and pretty much everybody else on the bench. So let's get into today's game and see what happens. So because it's the local derby, I've charged the players with going out there and reacting positively and giving the fans their money's worth. It's all about the fans today. Can we give the bragging rights to our fans for the next few days after this particular match and get one over on our local rivals? They're going to be tricky. They're a couple of places ahead of us in the league, and they're always there or thereabouts. So they are going to be difficult. They sit in a 4-3-3 to our sort of 4-5-1 asymmetric, I guess you'd call it for us. So yeah, there's a couple of different formations in there, so there'll be a little bit of space in and around some of these guys to exploit. So we'll see whether we can do it. So far it's been quite low key, 50-50 roughly on the possession, with only a couple of shots at goal, really, let alone on target. And again, we're going to have one of those first halves where not a lot happens. But just in the dying seconds of the first half, it's Roma with a free kick deep in their own half. And they go right the way over top, long, straight onto Morelos. And he puts it really wide. and we were a little bit fortunate there, a bit more quality on the finish, and we could have been a little bit of trouble just before half-time. And that's it. That is the one and only bit of highlight that we've got. So let's see if we can G them up again and go out as we usually do and get a far better and more interesting second half. So we're going to say I'm far from pleased, but then we're going to build them up and say that we've got faith in them, just to see if we can get any form of positive response from them. It's so needed at this point to boost them back up again and go out there, puff their chests out and try and assert themselves on this second half, really. There's been nothing in the first half to sort of scare us really about Roma. And can we create a chance of our own and get a bit of a mistake out of them maybe? But they've found a way to win it again in their central defensive area, gone through central midfield. They're going very direct quite early, aren't they? And this time, Morelos doesn't make any mistakes. We gave him a sighter before and he missed it. And now he doesn't. So what we're going to do about it? Well, immediately what I'm going to do is go back into the tactics. And there's one specific thing. Out of possession, we're going to drop the defensive line deep, because I don't want them charging over the top anymore. And we're going to push the line of engagement. And we're going to stretch the play a little bit, but we're going to see if we can stop that ball over the top. So that's the thing that I want to do at this point. So we'll confirm that change and go back in. And then we'll have to use a shout in a second. We're going to skip the goal. We don't need to see it again. We're going to use a shout of demand more and just see if we can find a way to get something from this game now, having gone behind. We went long ourselves, and that is not our game at all. We should be feeding it through midfield and playing the possession game. We're lucky that we got it back so quickly, really. And now's the chance for us to settle down in our pattern of play. And Muru cuts inside off the left fullback position. Alberto and Gagliardini keeping the ball well in central midfield, playing nice 1-2s with each other. And then we go again. Muru's pushed himself out wide again. Come into Milinkovic-Savic. There's the ball. Muru round the back. And he gets a half decent cross in. But really, Roma didn't have a problem in dealing with it. And look at Kluivert. Just ran through absolutely everything as if we weren't even there. What was that? He just ran straight through the centre of our midfield and moved up slightly. I guess that's the pocket that we leave now that we've taken the defence further back. You can't win either way, can you really? Gagliardini should have been the one sitting in there waiting for that sort of ball, but he wasn't. And because we dropped the defence so far back, there was a space between midfield and defence that they found and used that to run onto. Not happy with this at all. We're going to cancel that. I'm going to pause the game and go tactically, and we're going to have to, what we're going to do here now, we can either soak up the play and try and counter-attack on them, or we can try and dominate the play by going into the gegenpress and winning it high up the pitch. What we're going to do, how's Lazzari playing? Lazzari's not doing great, so we're going to switch Buendia in, and the reason that's important is that he plays the attacking role slightly better. So now we can go into that attacking role in the gegenpress and play the 4-2-3-1 and see if we can push ourselves onto the game a little bit. A couple more subs that we can make. So we're going to take Correa and Immobile out just because they're the ones that are not doing so well in this particular setup today. 6.5 ratings, which isn't good enough. So that means that Greenwood, the recent hero, comes back in. Hasn't done so much since then, unfortunately. It felt like one of those one-off games where everything went right for him. But other than that, he hasn't quite hit the ground running, to be honest, since then. And we have given him a couple of opportunities to do that. So we'll just change up these roles a little bit and make sure they're playing the right ones. So that'll do. And then one more for Zappacosta, who has been left out. That's well, attacking there. So that will do for all of that setup. So let's go back in. And as soon as we do, we'll go back in for a shout. And we'll say get creative. And just see if we can push everything forward and find a way to focus on the ball movement once we get it. But we've lost out again. It was Gagliardini that lost the ball there off a throw-in, and again they run straight through like we're not even there. And they're really up for this game, aren't they, Roma? I feel like that we are running out of ideas slightly, that we've tried a couple of things and they haven't really worked. I'll go for one last shout and show some passion for the last few minutes of the game. Can we get one shot at goal that will give us a bit of a a consolation goal, and it looks like we can't. It looks like they're going to do us in again, and they're going to work down the left-hand side. We've reset our shape this time at least, but they go to the far post and they get a header at the back post, and it goes sailing over the top. Fortunately, Strakosha had it covered. I don't know what happened there, but it ended up with the Roma goalkeeper having the ball, and he can boot it clear for the final whistle. And that's so disappointing. We've been on a good run recently. Obviously, the Real Madrid result was a bit of a problem, the most recent one, where we lost 4-2. But we gained it right back with a good win after that in the league, I think against Genoa. So I was kind of hoping that the momentum would regain itself. But Roma have shown why they are ahead of us in the table, and that causes us a few problems. So we are going to aggressively go in there and say far from pleased from that, and we'll go and check out the league table, because that's opened up a little bit of a gap there, unfortunately. Drop into 6th place. Still a couple of teams, Milan and Cagliari, that have still got to play their 12th match, and a couple behind us as well that could drop us further back. I mean, we're still within clawing distance of all the big teams there. Absolutely we are. But it's not quite good enough, is it? But look at Juventus. They're struggling a little bit. Zebra in 5th place. They're not doing much better than we are they really? Which is interesting to see. So if we can get above them maybe and claw them back, I'll take that as a half result for the series, because the whole point was to try and get above them. But if we get above them and don't win the league, that's going to be disappointing, isn't it, in its own way? Anyway, it's one of those games today that Roma showed up. We didn't. We'll have to reset ourselves for a couple of tricky games coming up. Inter Milan in there, and Galatasaray and Dortmund in the Champions League before we come back again for the Napoli game next episode. So I hope you join me for that, because this season's got a long way to go yet. This whole second half of the season, I think, is going to be quite interesting as we run in on the end of it and see where we are in terms of title contention or not. We are just holding on at the moment, clawing at the heels of a few of the big guys above us. But we're still there, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and join my United City community. The more the merrier. If you haven't clicked that like button for me, do that for me. That'd be great. That helps me get seen by lots of other people. Until next time, take care of yourselves. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.